There comes a moment in every person's life when they look around and realize they're completely alone, not physically alone, but fundamentally unsupported in their deepest aspirations. Your family doesn't understand your dreams. Your friends think you're chasing fantasies. Society tells you to be realistic, to conform, to give up on what sets your soul on fire. In these moments of profound isolation, most people surrender. They convince themselves that the majority must be right, that their dreams were foolish, that fitting in is better than standing out. But what if I told you that this moment of complete isolation, this terrifying absence of external support, is actually the beginning of your true power? What if the very thing you fear most, standing entirely alone, is the doorway to becoming genuinely unstoppable? Carl Jung, one of the most profound psychological minds in history, spent his entire career studying the human psyche and discovered something remarkable. He found that the greatest transformations, the most powerful awakenings, and the strongest individuals emerged not from comfort and support, but from periods of radical isolation and inner confrontation. Jung himself experienced what he called his confrontation with the unconscious, a period where he was professionally isolated, criticized by his peers, and forced to journey into the depths of his own psyche with no map, no guide, and no support system. What he discovered during this dark night of the soul became the foundation for understanding how human beings become truly unstoppable. Today, we're going to explore Jung's profound insights on standing alone, finding your inner foundation, and transforming isolation into unshakable strength. Let's start by examining an uncomfortable truth that Jung would want us to face directly. Most of what we call support is actually a cage disguised as comfort. When people support you, what are they really supporting? In most cases, they're supporting a version of you that makes them comfortable, that confirms their worldview, that doesn't challenge their choices or threaten their sense of reality. Jung wrote extensively about what he called the collective consciousness, the shared beliefs, values, and assumptions of society. The collective consciousness isn't evil, but it is fundamentally conservative. It wants you to fit in, to follow the established patterns, to not rock the boat. When your family, friends, and society offer you support, they're often supporting your alignment with the collective, not your individual truth. Think about it. When did your parents last support a decision that genuinely scared them? When did your friends encourage you to pursue something that would mean you'd outgrow your current social circle? When did society celebrate someone who completely rejected its core values, even when those values were limiting? The answer is they didn't, and they won't. This isn't because people are malicious. It's because genuine individuation, what Jung called the process of becoming your true self, is threatening to the collective. Your transformation implies that others might need to transform too, and most people would rather you stay small than face their own potential for growth. This is why Jung emphasized that the journey to wholeness is fundamentally a solitary one. He didn't mean that we should isolate ourselves from others completely, but rather that we must find our foundation within ourselves, not in the approval or support of others. The moment you make external support the foundation of your journey, you've already surrendered your power. One of Jung's most revolutionary concepts was the shadow, those parts of ourselves we've rejected, repressed, and hidden away because they didn't fit with who we thought we should be. Here's where things get interesting. When we talk about having no support, the very reason you often lack support is because you're finally approaching your shadow material, the parts of you that the collective taught you to hide. Maybe you've always been told to be practical, to suppress your creativity. Maybe you were taught that ambition is selfish, or that humility means making yourself small. Maybe your authentic personality was too loud, too quiet, too intense, too sensitive for your family's comfort. Whatever it was, you learned to hide parts of yourself to receive approval, love, and support. Now, as an adult, When you feel called to pursue your genuine path, you're not just choosing a different career or lifestyle. You're reclaiming those shadow parts of yourself that were banished long ago. You're saying that your creativity matters, that your ambition is valid, that your authentic expression deserves space. And the people who taught you to hide those parts in the first place, they're not going to support this reclamation. They can't. It would mean acknowledging that they helped you betray yourself. Jung believed that integrating the shadow was essential to becoming whole, to achieving what he called individuation. But here's the challenge. Shadow work is terrifying to do alone. The shadow contains not just our rejected strengths, but also our denied weaknesses, our unacknowledged fears, our repressed rage and grief. When you journey into the shadow, without external support, without someone holding your hand and telling you it will be okay, you must develop an extraordinary internal strength. This is actually the point. The absence of external support forces you to discover your internal foundation. You can't project your strength onto a supportive parent, partner, or mentor. You can't hide behind someone else's belief in you. You must face yourself completely, and in that confrontation, you forge an unshakable sense of self. Jung spent considerable time studying myths, legends, and stories from cultures around the world. He noticed a recurring pattern that he called the hero's journey, an archetypal story structure that appears everywhere from ancient texts to modern films. And here's what's crucial. In virtually every hero's journey, there's a moment where the hero must journey alone. The hero doesn't just face physical challenges. They face what Jung called the abyss, a moment of complete isolation where all external support falls away, where they must confront their deepest fears with nothing but their inner resources. Odysseus washes up alone on Calypso's island. Buddha sits alone under the Bodhi tree. Jesus spends 40 days alone in the wilderness. Every transformative journey includes this period of radical solitude. Why? Because the hero's journey isn't really about external adventures. It's about internal transformation. It's about discovering who you truly are when every external identity, every source of validation, every crutch and comfort is stripped away. The moment when you have no support isn't a bug in your journey. It's the most essential feature. Jung would say that you're living out this archetypal pattern right now. You're at the stage where the hero must enter the cave alone, where no allies can follow, where the dragon must be faced in solitude. This isn't happening to punish you or because you've done something wrong. It's happening because you're ready for a profound transformation that can only occur in the crucible of isolation. The question isn't, how do I get support? The question is, who am I becoming in this necessary solitude? Because the person who emerges from this journey will be fundamentally different from the person who entered it. You won't be unstoppable because people finally believe in you. You'll be unstoppable because you've discovered an internal foundation that no external circumstance can shake. At the center of Jung's psychology is the concept of the self. Note the capital S. This isn't your ego, your personality, or your self-image. The self is what Jung described as the archetype of wholeness, the totality of who you are, both conscious and unconscious. It's the organizing principle of your psyche, the inner guide that's been trying to lead you toward wholeness your entire life. Here's the revolutionary part. Jung believed that establishing a relationship with the self is far more important than any external relationship. When you connect with yourself, you tap into a source of guidance, strength, and wisdom that doesn't depend on other people's opinions or society's approval. The self has been whispering to you through your dreams, your intuitions, your deepest longings, your inexplicable attractions and repulsions. It's been trying to individuate you, to make you whole. The reason you feel unsupported right now is likely because you're finally listening to the self rather than the collective. The self is calling you toward your unique path, your individual destiny, your authentic expression. But the collective, represented by family, friends, and society, wants you to follow the established path. This creates a fundamental conflict, and most people resolve it by abandoning the self to maintain external support. But what if you don't? What if you choose the self over the collective? This is where you become genuinely unstoppable, because you're no longer living for external validation. You're living in alignment with your deepest truth. You're no longer building your life on the unstable foundation of other people's approval. You're building on the rock of your authentic self. Jung developed a practice he called active imagination to strengthen the connection with the self. This involves dialoguing with the images, symbols, and figures that emerge from your unconscious through dreams, fantasies, and creative expression. When you have no external support, this internal dialogue becomes your most vital relationship. You learn to trust the guidance of the self, even when it contradicts everything the external world is telling you. This isn't about becoming isolated or disconnected from others. Paradoxically, when you establish a strong relationship with yourself, you become more capable of genuine relationships with others. You're no longer desperately seeking support and validation. You're no longer betraying yourself to fit in. You can finally meet others as your authentic self, and the relationships that emerge from this authentic ground are far more nourishing than the conditional support you've lost. Jung recognized that the path to individuation often passes through what mystics have called the dark night of the soul, a period of profound depression, meaninglessness, and isolation. Modern psychology might pathologize this experience, but Jung understood it as a necessary stage of transformation. Sometimes the old self must completely die before the new self can be born. When you have no support, when your dreams seem impossible, when you question everything you thought you knew about yourself and your life, you might be in the dark night of the soul. This feels like failure, like evidence that you've chosen the wrong path. But Jung would say this is often the moment, right before breakthrough. The dark night serves several purposes. First, it dissolves your ego's illusions about who you are and what you can control. Your ego wants to be special, approved, successful, and supported. The dark night shows you that none of these external markers can give you lasting peace. This dissolution is painful but necessary. Second, the dark night forces you to confront your deepest fears. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of being alone, fear of your own inadequacy. All of these shadows emerge in the darkness. When you have no external support to distract you from these fears, you must finally face them. And in facing them, you discover that they don't destroy you. You're stronger than you thought. Third, the dark night creates space for the new to emerge. Your old identity, based on external validation and collective values, must be dismantled before your authentic self can fully emerge. This dismantling is disorienting and painful, but it's creating space for something far more genuine. Jung himself went through an extended dark night following his break with Freud. He lost professional support, was isolated from his peers, and spent years in what he called creative illness, exploring his unconscious through dreams and visions. Most people thought he had lost his mind, but this period of isolation and inner exploration produced his most profound insights and established him as one of the greatest psychological minds in history. Your dark night isn't evidence that you're on the wrong path. It's evidence that you're on a path of genuine transformation. The question isn't how to escape the darkness, but how to use it. What is the darkness teaching you? What illusions is it dissolving? What strength are you being forced to discover? One of Jung's most practical concepts for navigating isolation is what he called the transcendent function. This is the psyche's ability to hold opposing tensions and allow a third thing to emerge, something that transcends and includes both opposites. When you lack support, you're caught between opposing forces. part of you wants to pursue your authentic path, to honor the call of the self. Another part wants approval, belonging, and the safety of conformity. These feel like contradictory needs, and most people collapse into one or the other. They either completely sacrifice their authenticity for approval, or they reject all connection in the name of independence. The transcendent function offers a third way. Instead of choosing between these opposites, you hold the tension. You acknowledge your need for connection while honoring your authentic path. You feel the pain of isolation while trusting the process of individuation. You don't resolve the tension prematurely. You let it work on you, transforming you into someone who can integrate both needs at a higher level. This process isn't comfortable. Holding tension feels like being pulled apart. But Jung recognized that psychological growth happens precisely in this uncomfortable middle space. When you resist the urge to escape the tension, either by giving up your dreams or by becoming completely isolated, something new emerges. You develop what Jung called the middle path, a way of being that honors both your individual truth and your connection to others. Practically, this means sitting with the discomfort of having no support without either abandoning your path or hardening your heart against all connection. It means staying open to people while not betraying yourself to please them. It means pursuing your goals while acknowledging your very human need for belonging. The tension is the point. The discomfort is doing something essential in your psyche. While Jung emphasized the importance of standing alone, he also recognized that we need support, just not the kind most people seek. Instead of external support based on approval and validation, we need what we might call internal support, a connection to resources within our own psyche that can sustain us through any external circumstance. First, establish a regular practice of self-reflection. Jung recommended keeping a journal, recording dreams, and engaging in active imagination. These practices create a dialogue between your conscious ego and the deeper layers of your psyche. Over time, you develop a sense of being guided and supported by something within you that's wiser than your everyday consciousness. Second, study the lives of others who walked this path before you. Read about the mystics, artists, innovators, and individualists who faced isolation and emerged transformed. Their stories become what Jung called archetypal resources, patterns of human experience that show you that you're not alone in your aloneness. Countless others have walked this path, and their journeys can inspire and guide you. Third, develop practices that connect you to something larger than yourself. Jung was deeply interested in spirituality, not as dogma, but as a lived experience of connection to the numinous, the divine, the mystery. Whether through meditation, prayer, time in nature, or creative expression, find ways to experience yourself as part of something vast and meaningful. This connection to the transpersonal can provide a sense of support that doesn't depend on human approval. Fourth, honor your creative impulses. Jung believed that creative expression was essential for individuation. When you create something, art, music, writing, building, anything, you're in dialogue with the unconscious. You're giving form to inner contents that need expression. This creative process itself becomes a source of support and meaning, independent of whether anyone appreciates or understands what you create. Finally, be patient with the process. Jung understood that individuation is the work of a lifetime. You're not trying to quickly overcome your isolation and get back to having support. You're learning to be internally supported, which is a profound shift in how you relate to yourself and the world. This takes time, and there's no shortcut. Here's what most people miss about standing alone. It's not just a challenge to overcome. It's a gift that's offering you something you couldn't receive any other way. The absence of external support is creating space for you to discover who you truly are, apart from others' expectations, projections, and needs. Think about it. When you have support, you're always performing for someone. You're being the version of yourself that maintains that support. You're editing your thoughts, moderating your expression, shaping your choices to keep approval flowing. This isn't necessarily conscious or manipulative. It's just how social beings navigate relationships. But it means you never fully discover your authentic self. When support falls away, when you're truly alone with your choices and dreams, you can finally ask, what do I actually want? What do I truly believe? Who would I be if I didn't have to please anyone? These questions lead you to your authentic self, the person you were always meant to become. Jung would say that isolation is offering you the chance to differentiate. Most people never truly separate from the collective consciousness. They think they're individuals, but they're actually just performing a socially acceptable version of individuality. True individuation requires a period of standing completely alone, of discovering that you can survive and even thrive without external validation. This gift of isolation also develops what Jung called psychological strength, the capacity to hold your center regardless of external circumstances. When you've walked through the fire of having no support and emerged intact, nothing external can truly threaten you anymore. You've proven to yourself that your worth, your purpose, and your strength don't depend on others' approval. This realization is genuinely liberating. Moreover, isolation teaches you discernment. When you eventually do find support, and you will, as you become more authentically yourself, you'll be able to recognize genuine support from conditional approval. You'll attract people who appreciate your authentic self, rather than people who want you to stay small. Your relationships will be based on truth rather than need, and they'll be far more fulfilling. So how do you actually become unstoppable when you have no support? Let me synthesize Jung's insights into practical wisdom. First, recognize that your isolation is not an obstacle, but the path itself. Stop waiting for support to arrive before you begin. Stop thinking you need people to believe in you before you can believe in yourself. The journey of individuation, of becoming your authentic self, requires this period of standing alone. Accept it, embrace it, use it. Second, develop an unwavering relationship with yourself. Through dreams, intuition, creative expression, and honest self-reflection, learn to hear and trust the voice of your inner guide. This relationship becomes your true foundation, more reliable than any external support could ever be. Third, integrate your shadow. Face the parts of yourself you've rejected. Reclaim your denied strengths and acknowledge your hidden weaknesses. The more whole you become internally, the less you need external validation to feel complete. Fourth, hold the tension without collapsing into easy answers. Don't give up your dreams to fit in, but don't harden your heart against all connection either. Stay in the uncomfortable middle space where transformation happens. Fifth, see your struggles as initiation rather than failure. Jung understood that the hero's journey includes necessary trials. Your lack of support, your doubts, your fears, these aren't signs you're on the wrong path. They're signs you're being initiated into a deeper level of strength and authenticity. Finally, remember that becoming unstoppable doesn't mean you never struggle or doubt. It means you've discovered a foundation within yourself that external circumstances can't shake. You've learned that you can face anything because you've already faced the hardest thing, yourself. Carl Jung's life and work offer us a radical perspective on what it means to stand alone. He didn't see isolation as something to escape, but as an essential crucible for transformation. The very thing you fear most, having no support, is actually the doorway to becoming the person you were always meant to be. You are not unsupported because you're doing something wrong. You're unsupported because you're doing something profoundly right. You're choosing individuation over conformity, authenticity over approval, yourself over the collective. This choice makes you threatening to people who haven't made it themselves, which is why support falls away. But here's the truth that Jung spent his life uncovering. When you establish a genuine relationship with yourself, when you integrate your shadow, when you survive the dark night and emerge transformed, you become unstoppable, not because nothing can hurt you, but because nothing can make you betray yourself anymore. Your center holds. Your foundation is unshakable. Your purpose is clear. The world needs people who have done this work. Society doesn't need more people who conform, who sacrifice their authenticity for approval, who stay small to make others comfortable. The world needs individuals who have faced themselves completely, integrated their wholeness, and emerged ready to offer their unique gifts without needing validation. You're standing alone right now, and that's terrifying. But you're also standing at the threshold of profound transformation. The journey ahead will be difficult, but it will make you into someone truly unstoppable. Not because you've conquered the world, but because you've discovered that your worth, your strength, and your purpose live within you, untouchable by external circumstance. Jung would tell you that you have everything you need for this journey. You have yourself, seeking to guide you toward wholeness. You have your shadow, waiting to be integrated. You have the transcendent function, capable of holding tension and birthing new possibilities. You have the archetypal patterns that countless heroes have walked before you. You are not alone in your aloneness. You are walking an ancient path of transformation. Trust the process. Trust yourself. Trust the self that's guiding you. The support you truly need doesn't come from outside. It never did. It's been inside you all along, waiting for this moment when you'd finally be ready to discover it. Now go forth and become unstoppable, not despite your isolation, but because of it.